After the first presidential debate, there's been a lot of discussion about potential changes to the Democratic ticket. That means we have to join into that discussion. First thing I want to ask you, Anthony, is how did you feel after the debate?
Well, listen, it's not how I felt after the debate. It's how I felt after the first 2 minutes of the debate because the Joe Biden lost that debate within 2 minutes of answering that first
Yeah,
question.
and we know that because we were watching the debate together, and all I got through was the first 2 minutes.
And Ben, you stood up. You're like, dude, I actually can't do this. I have to go home. This is making me sad. I cannot do this.
It was making me almost sick to my stomach.
I felt like I felt there was no hope almost.
Yeah.
Like any viability of Joe Biden defeating Donald Trump left my body
Yes.
after watching him perform against him. He couldn't answer simple questions. There was a layup question asked about abortion, and Joe Biden could not make the case for abortion against Donald Trump. And it was such a bad answer. He actually somehow pivoted it to tee up Donald Trump to attack migrant crime. He was so ineffectual at getting his own point across. It's obvious he's not up for campaigning right now. And it was clear after the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was clear he was bad on substance. He was bad as a debater. But besides that, to me, the reason that I got up after 2 minutes is because you saw in that first 2 minutes that every media allegation, every right-wing allegation about his age, about how he's losing it, how he's clearly not all there, he was confirming it. Like it was happening. You were seeing that he didn't have full control of his voice, that he seemed like super nervous to me, like
Very nervous.
like overwhelmed by anxiety, so he didn't know what to say. And I think in the first, maybe in the second question that he answered, there was a moment of like a 5-second solid pause where he didn't realize how he wanted to end his answer, and he pivoted to a completely different topic.
Oh God!
And it was like the most cringeworthy. It was like The Office level of cringe. It was brutal.
It was brutal. I will say, like, if you actually just read the transcript of the debate, Joe Biden actually had some very substantive points. If you just read the transcript, but that's not what being a presidential communicator is about.
Yeah.
That is not what The Office is. The Office isn't about writing good policy memos and having all the facts together. The Office is about making an agenda with your administration and then being the communicator to the American people.
Yeah.
And he just cannot do that. I will say about the debate prep, they locked him away at
Camp David?
Yeah, Camp David for like a week prepping him for this debate. And what I think happened was they over-prepped him. I think they stuffed his old brain with books of knowledge about everything that he could think of, having stats everywhere, right? Having all this information. I can picture him writing down note card after note card, trying to memorize all the different things that are in his 2025 fiscal year budget.
Yeah.
But all that's irrelevant if you can't communicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that he was writing it all down with the fear that he would come off as old and like unknowing.
Yeah.
And even though he knew he could have known everything.
I bet you he knows everything.
Yes, I think so too. Which is why the one thing I would push back on is like the office of the president isn't only about being that communicator.
Sure.
Right? Because Joe Biden, neither of us would disagree that he's been an excellent president.
Yeah, he's been a very effective president.
Because the policies do matter, and he's been him and the office and whoever you might be able to give credit to for this have been executing policy that has helped the country, helped the economy fantastically.
Simply, Biden is a good governor. He's a bad electioner. That's what campaigner. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we need someone who is going to be a good campaigner.
Yeah.
And for me, it's clear it's not Joe Biden.
Okay.
And
so you think he should step down?
Let's answer that question.
Yes.
Right. So since February, Ezra Klein started this discourse of wanting Joe Biden to drop out and have an open convention. And we came on this show, and I specifically pushed back very hard. I said Joe Biden should not drop out. We should not have an open convention. An open convention would be chaos.
Yeah.
And I still believe an open convention would be chaos. But I no longer believe that Joe Biden should stay on the top of the ticket. I think Joe Biden needs to drop. I think it's very, very obvious. And all of those feelings that I felt in February and March when I was holding on to Joe Biden, I thought all of the media reports about his age were simply wrong.
Yeah.
And that he would be able to get over them the way he did at the State of the Union.
Yeah.
What's now clear is he can't. And because of that new information, I have to change my opinion.
Okay. I agree. Definitely. I was already more open to Ezra's idea when we read about it initially, or when he published the piece. This completely locked that in for me. So what you say, you still think an open convention would be chaos.
Yeah.
What do you see as the path forward?
I think the path forward is actually like pretty simple. I think it's Joe Biden steps down, endorses Harris, and then the Democratic Party lines up full throttle behind Harris, and then Harris picks a VP from a swing state like Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Jesus Christ, Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania or Roy Cooper from North Carolina, picks one of those swing state governors, and we move on. That's it.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what I think. And there's a bunch of reasons why.
So my next question would be: You're confident that Harris would beat Trump? Would
I'm
have a
not-
good chance of beating Trump?
I think Harris will have a better chance at beating Trump than Biden.
Give me ballpark percentages. I'm curious.
I think Biden has a 40% chance of winning against Trump.
Okay, I would probably say about the same.
I think Harris would have a 55% chance of winning.
So you think Harris is more likely to win?
Yes, I think Harris is more likely to win. I think the American people are very hungry for someone who's young. I think that's actually all it takes, to be honest. And that might sound cynical as someone we are very, very involved in politics. We do a lot of research into these topics and we care a lot about policy. But at these margins, I don't know how much policy is going to make the difference in this type of election. And I think it's more about showing that Harris will be a steady hand at the top, who's young,
not a shaky
hand, who can communicate.
Okay.
It can seem like she has her stuff together, and I think she could also make the arguments very clearly against Trump. I can imagine Harris having an abortion argument against Donald Trump and putting him under the table, where Biden just can't do that.
Okay.
Okay. And do you think Harris is the way forward, or do you think another path? Do you think an open convention is the way to go?
I definitely think Harris would have a better chance than Biden at this point. Harris, my biggest problem, and what I texted you about after the debate, is this election should be all about Donald Trump.
It should be a referendum on Trump.
Exactly, right? And Harris would certainly make it more of a referendum on Trump. Biden has the problem with his debate performance is he's created the image in people's minds that he is enough of a problem at his age that this is not just about the danger that Trump poses, it's also about the danger that Biden poses.
Yes.
Harris would eliminate that. Harris
completely.
would, by just being a normal candidate.
Right.
I put her chance of winning still more at 50% because I think there are weaknesses to her candidacy.
Sure.
I think she can struggle. I think she would also struggle in the capacity of the presidential communicator. In everything I've heard her speak about and things that I've heard people say about her, she's not comfortable articulating kind of a grand story and vision, not only about herself, but about what she has going forward. She's by trade a district attorney. She's a prosecutor. So like, I think she's good at articulating a very specific record about hitting very specific milestones, like achieving a certain number of arrests, or I don't know if arrest is the right word, prosecutions, guilty convictions of people. I don't know if she's she's not the pontificator that say an Obama might be.
Right.
So I would put her shot at 50 because she's still not Trump, but she's still a woman, which could hurt her. She's a, how do I say this? I feel like she might be perceived as,
Do you think she could be perceived as radical left?
No.
Okay.
No shot.
Okay.
No shot. But she, on the other hand, she wouldn't excite the base either.
Well,
although I don't know that would matter that much.
Right. Well, when we say it's hard, because I think she could excite the base, because the base of the Democratic Party is black women, period. The black women vote for the Democratic Party 97%, right? Black women are the base.
True.
If you excite that, that is good. And so also, like, I think that she could pull out the worst aspects of the Republican Party into the front There was a New York Post article that said that Kamala Harris would be the first diversity president in American history. And that's just blatantly racist. That's like diversity with the hard R right there. You know what I mean? And so like I feel like that invigorates the base to show support for her more than anything else when she's taken that type of flack. So also, other thing, Harris will inherit all of Joe Biden's money, which is very important. Any other candidate wouldn't.
True.
And an open convention would bring other chaos things that a Harris nomination wouldn't. A Harris nomination would just be a smooth transition, whereas an open convention, there would have to be, deal wrangling and all that stuff.
True. I still think that it might be the better path forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think, I don't know, politics is about power brokers.
Yeah.
Which is the main argument for Harris, I think. Like it would be hard to keep all of your power brokers and all of your Democratic Party elites happy if you leapfrog the vice president without any good reason to do so. But I do think the media attention and the excitement of an open convention, in addition to getting one of these guys who I think are really good pontificators, and hopefully I don't think I would want Gavin Newsom to be that person, but to have Josh Shapiro be that person, I think that you could really mobilize the base more, and almost because they're a new face, because there's something different, and they don't have some of the blemishes on their record that I think Harris does, and that could actually hurt her.
Yeah. Harris does have a few that I can think of off the top of my head. There are a couple. Yeah.
So I would prefer someone else, but I know that the path to get to someone else is way harder, if not impossible, to surpass Harris.
And so now that leaves us to, will Joe Biden even drop out?
Yeah.
Because the only way that we can replace Joe Biden is if he chooses to leave. There really isn't another way.
Yeah.
The party delegates that are pledged to Joe Biden, I think, have to vote for Joe Biden on the first ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And then only after the first ballot can they switch. If that happens, Joe Biden becomes the nominee, and a story.
Yes.
And so really the only way for us to move away from Joe Biden is for Joe Biden himself to drop out. Mm-hmm. And do you think he will?
No, I'll kind of go through the story. So after the debate, there was instantly a ton of news reporting, a ton of feedback that says, oh my God, this is a complete disaster. Biden needs to drop out. He can't be the candidate anymore. I was on board with that. I was hoping that all of the reporting and every article was like, in private conversations, Democratic donors and Democratic congressmen are saying Biden should drop out.
Emphasis on the private conversation.
Instantly, the Biden campaign starts to push back. He's like, it was just a bad night. Tries to push the blame onto Trump, which is one other question I had here. Does Trump's performance matter at all? Given Biden's, I don't think it does.
No, I think Trump gave an abhorrent performance. I think he was terrible. He didn't answer multiple questions about childcare, about anything else.
He lied directly about so many things. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all because he didn't sound like he was losing it. Like he didn't sound like he couldn't answer the questions.
Yeah.
So these articles start to come out. Biden campaign pushes back. Again, we're texting, trying to figure out how this could go. We're both hoping he drops out. We think his candidacy is completely a wreck. But we're also saying, who are the only people who could push him out? And Jill Biden is the first person who comes to mind. And reporting has confirmed that since then. It's that articles have come out that say basically who's going to decide whether Biden drops out are Biden himself, Jill Biden, and a couple, like two other close family members or friends that they've had.
Like they have Hunter
decades.
Biden giving his sister, 2 cents.
Joe Biden's sister. So they show no sign, no cracks, except one report comes out that says Biden understands that his campaign is in jeopardy. And so this is where I had a little bit of hope. He's like, I understand that it seemed like he knew that he would have to give good performances in subsequent days. But he might consider dropping out. He gives a teleprompter scripted speech in North Carolina.
That was very good.
Which is reported on as really solid. But this has been the problem with Biden. He's been good on teleprompters. He's been good in scripted situations, but he's struggling in unscripted situations, and he can't avoid unscripted situations all the time on the campaign trail.
Right.
So he gives this debate. or no, he gives the speech, and I'm concerned because I think this is going to allow him to take the pressure off, and it does.
Right.
I think, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because then people look at the speech. They're sending tweets out about the speech. They're like, oh, look, no, he sounds pretty good here. Even
Yes.
I'm like, I watched the speech. I'm like, all right, he sounds okay.
He does sound good.
Yeah.
No, the problem is not how he sounded in that speech at all.
No.
He did sound good.
Yes.
But the problem is it doesn't matter.
Right. Because that's not going to change the narrative.
Yes.
The narrative is set.
That's the problem. And that's what these Democrats who are hoping Biden stays in, that he can do better. You just had the event that your swing voters are going to make the decision on.
Mm-hmm.
The debate, that was it. You don't make up from that.
Right.
You don't have 50 million swing voters, or 10 million swing voters, or whoever it is. It was 50 million people total who watched that debate. You don't have 10 million swing voters tuning in to any of the other shit Biden's doing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he does a good scripted talk. It doesn't matter that he goes and does an interview with George Stephanopoulos, which I thought was completely uninspiring.
It's terrible.
Reinforced the perception of him at the debate. Didn't help at all, and that they can put out, but it's enough that the campaign can say that he's come back. Like he gave good answers. He articulated a vision for the future of the country.
Yeah.
And so I feel like even though he hasn't reassured anyone, as time has gone on, he's just pushed back against calls for him to drop out of the race enough that pressure is being relieved. Because no one now wants to be the person who corrupts the ticket.
I think I will say, I don't think pressure, I don't feel that the pressure is being, I don't feel that way. Pelosi went on TV today, and she's giving an interview on Morning Joe, which is the new show that Joe Biden watches every single morning. He watches Morning Joe every morning.
Oh, really?
And so Pelosi goes on Morning Joe, and she says, I hope Joe Biden makes a decision soon. And they're like, but he already has made a decision. She's like, well, we'll see after the NATO summit what his decision is. And so, like, Nancy Pelosi is the leader of the Democratic Party.
True.
Right? I mean, she is the top dog. She has been for a long time.
Mm.
And so with her still being like, Joe Biden hasn't made up his mind yet, even though Joe Biden has said explicitly that he's made up his mind.
Yeah.
That makes me believe that it's not over and the pressure is still there. There's been I think there's now 12 Democrats in the House that have come out and asked him to step down. Pat Ryan is a swing state guy in New York, congressman in New York, who just called for him to step down.
There was a senator as well who came out,
Matt
I think.
Senator Bennett from Colorado.
Yes.
And there's a Politico article this morning talking about how New York could be within 8 points if Joe Biden is at the top of the ticket.
Oh my God.
Indicating that it's now a swing state. And it drags down all the Democrats in the House in New York.
I guess.
So now all those Democrats in New York, Pat Ryan being one of them, are now freaking out and making these calls.
So you think this could actually happen?
Yeah, I still think it can actually happen. I definitely do. I don't think it's over yet. I do not think it's over
You don't think like the letter that he wrote to the Democratic congressman shut the door?
No. I don't think it shut the door yet.
So what does shut the door?
The only thing
that would convince you?
The thing that would absolutely convince me is Nancy Pelosi coming out saying Joe Biden is the nominee. Stop talking about it. I'm done with it.
Interesting.
That's what it would take. It would take for it to be like Joe Biden is the nominee. Put it to bed. It's over. And it has to come from someone who's meaningful, not someone who I love AOC. I support her. And AOC has actually come out in support of Biden.
Yeah.
AOC, but she says it in a way. She's like, he is the nominee. I support the nominee.
Yes.
That's it. And Pramila Jayapal, leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, I support the nominee until he's not the nominee.
Yeah.
Right? So that's all they're saying.
Yeah. So you're reading between the lines.
And until Nancy Pelosi or someone high up says Joe Biden's the nominee, stop asking me about it, then I still have hope.
Okay. So the wording even matters.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
Well, what do you think? Do you think it's over?
I've been pretty convinced by everything I've read that's come out of the Biden camp. I cannot imagine what else could sway him. Again, he's got the pressure from the congressional Democrats. Pelosi is putting the pressure on him. I mean, maybe he needs time to respond to Pelosi's pressure, but he's also already started putting out this narrative that he's tired of the elites, of the Democratic elites coming after him.
He's gone full blown Trump with his language.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care what the millionaires think, and it's I think it's kind of ridiculous, but it's also to me solidifying the fact that he's looking for any way he can to
Yeah.
stay in this race.
Right. He's like grasping at straws. And now I will say he can't even show doubt about him staying in the race until he makes the decision to exit it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
He can't say, "Ooh, I'm thinking about it."
Yeah,
Because then the second he says, "Oh, I'm thinking about it," he has to leave.
true.
Because that is so much weakness.
Yes,
Right? He needs to say, "I'm out. That's it."
That's true,
It's like the New York Times headlines the day before Nixon drops out or Nixon resigns. Day before is Nixon, "I'm not going anywhere." Next day, Nixon resigns.
yes, but I don't think he had to specifically write and publish that letter
Yeah,
to the Democrats.
I do agree.
Right.
That is very hard.
Yes.
That's hard.
Yeah.
So, listen, I hope that Joe Biden drops out. I think
Again, let's put a number on it. What
Yeah.
would you put as the odds that he could drop out?
Biden dropping out is 45%, 40.
Really?
I think it's that high.
I
I
think-
still think it's that high.
I think it's 15%.
You think it's that low?
Yeah, I really
you
do.
think? Oh, geez, that is so pessimistic.
But well, because as much as people are pushing back, there's still so much momentum on his side.
What momentum is on his side?
He's the incumbent.
Oh, I
They've
don't
gone
know,
through
dude.
the primary.
But
like,
the primary was there was no actual person running against him. That argument doesn't make sense to me.
oh, I think that because if he wanted to drop out, then he would have had to not run for re-election or drop out in January or drop out in March, right? Like, I feel like the matter of timing here is of extreme interest. We're 4 months out.
Yeah, but most countries do their elections in 3 months. Most countries do their election in 1 month. We're the only country that has an election year. I do not think that the incumbency advantage really does anything for Joe Biden right now.
I don't think it does anything for him, but it creates momentum for him to stay in.
When
Like,
you say
it
creates
would be,
momentum for him, what do you mean by
I'm
that?
saying
Do you think
it
that
would be extraordinarily abnormal for a candidate, an incumbent candidate who is running, to not be in the race anymore.
I get that, but can you name me a single person who is a ride or die Biden supporter? Like I want to try to zoom in on the sect of voter that would be turned off from Biden dropping out, and that would be nobody. Nobody is a ride with Biden or die. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Whereas there are definitely a lot of voters who say, "Give me a younger Democrat and I will vote for them." Period.
So you don't think there are any, say, older voters that are voting Democrat that if they force Biden out because of perceived concerns about his age, they decide they don't want to vote for Kamala Harris?
No. That doesn't happen.
Really?
There is nobody who says, "I'm voting for Joe Biden, but if it's Kamala Harris, I'm not voting." That person doesn't exist, dude. That
Okay.
person doesn't exist.
Okay.
And because that person doesn't exist, you got to pull him. But the issue is Joe Biden is not looking at this from what is best for the country. Joe Biden is not looking at this about what is best for the Democratic Party. He's looking at what's best for him.
You say that, and I want to believe that because that's the easiest explanation. But it's hard for me to believe because in this letter, for example, to the congressman, he specifically says, I understand how much is at stake in this election.
Mm-hmm.
I've been articulating that. And the only reason that I am staying in is because I truly believe I am the person with the best chance to beat Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Do you think he's bald-faced
Yes,
lying?
I think he's bald-faced lying because that is a scripted, prepared statement.
Yeah.
When he's in that George Stephanopoulos interview,
Yeah.
and George Stephanopoulos asks him, how would you feel if November, 8th, I don't know when the election date is, you wake up and you lost and Donald Trump is the president? How would you feel? And Joe Biden says, as long as I gave it my all, I'll be okay. No. This is not about you at all. That is not the type of answer that any Democratic voter or anybody who's anti-Trump was expecting. Your answer should be shock, horror, disappointment, fear for the country. It's not, I gave it my all. Because if your actual response to losing the election is, oh, I gave it my all, then that tells me you don't think Donald Trump is an actual threat to democracy. That's what I get from that.
Okay.
Because if it's all about you and that's how you're perceiving it, you must not think Trump is actually that big of a threat. That's how I feel. And so I don't think Biden's statement when he talks about, oh, I'm the best person, he knows it's not true.
Okay. I think that's a good place to call it.